Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. It's getting to be fall and it's time to plant the winter annuals. Today we are planting snapdragons and pansies. Also, want to ward off evil or discover if your love will be a good partner? We'll tell you which plants you can use. It's plant superstitions. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Joellen Diamond. Joellen is the Director of Landscape at the University of Memphis, and Dr. Lilia Kelly will be joining me later. All right, I know what we're about to do, right?
Yeah. Doesn't it look gorgeous? The things we planted
do.
this year, the vinca, the pentas, but where's the scaevola, the blue scaevola?
Yeah.
Well, there might be a few left, but the vinca and the pentas really outgrew
Yes.
the scaevola. But it still looks good.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
Now this side is a little bit taller than this side, and I think that's due to environmental conditions associated with watering, because there's an irrigation head over there, but I think it sprays up and over, which means it doesn't get this section of the garden as wet as this one.
And it actually makes a difference, as you can see.
Yeah,
So,
it does make a difference. But yeah, now the vinca and these pentas, because we have vincas especially, we won't be able to plant them, even though they did well, for about 2 to 3 more years, because we don't want to develop any kind of disease pressure in this bed because of the vinca, because the vincas get the diseases. And if you keep planting the same plant all the time, then you won't be able to plant them anymore.
Right.
And we don't want to do that. We
No,
want
we
to be
don't
able to
wanna do
plant
that.
because they've done so well. We want to be able to plant them again.
Yeah.
So we have to pull them out to put pansies in because it's that time of year. If we don't get the pansies in the ground, then they're not going to look good for when it gets really cold in winter.
Yeah,
So
we want
gotta
them to
do-
look good,
We
of
want them
course.
to look good, so
Yeah.
it's time to pull these out. And we'll pull them up, and then we can put them in a bag and then put them in the compost pile, because there's nothing wrong with them. Look great.
Yeah, this is always tough for me though, you know that, right?
Yes, I know.
Yeah, all right.
And it's hard for some people to watch, but yes, it's time. It's the time of year to get rid of them.
God, so beautiful. All right.
And I found a scaevola.
Did you? This system's look
It
good.
was trying.
Oh yeah, I was trying to get out there. Golly.
These went to their full potential. Look how about
Yeah.
12 inches is about right. It did really good.
Get that in.
I know they look good, but we get that first frost and they'll all turn black. And
They'll go to mush.
They'll just go to mush, and I hate to pull things up when they're mushy. It's a lot easier to pull them up when they're nice and alive like this.
All right, getting close to the end here.
Yeah, a few weeds.
Yeah, a
Not
few
much.
spurge, a little
The-
dandelion.
Yeah, which is good because we don't put any pre-emergent in this bed, and the plants got large enough that they shaded the ground so
Right.
we didn't get weeds. We got all the plants up, but look, we got a lot of trash left, and
Yeah.
it's not going to it doesn't detract from what we're going to be planting. We need to clean this up. So we'll rake it a little bit and pick up what we can't rake up. Yeah, there's not a whole lot. I don't want to get too much mulch in with this. I just want to get the
Yeah.
debris. Okay, well, to get our pansies and snapdragons a good start, we got quite a bit of mulch here. We'll dress it up a little bit at the end, but we'll put a little bit of this slow release fertilizer down in the bed to get the pansies a good start. There we go. And let's talk about our pansies we're going to have. We got 2 different kinds of trailing pansies. We've never used trailing pansies before, so we'll see how they do. They're really known to be put in containers because they will spill over the side and get at least 12 inches or more in length.
Okay.
And They do the same thing on the ground, so we are going to try them here and see how they fill in.
We're going to see how they do.
Another thing we're going to do is we're going to fill in between them with some snapdragons. Now, we've never used snapdragons before. I like snapdragons. The problem is they're a cool season annual, but they may not be a cold season annual. So we'll see how long they last in the garden.
Okay.
If we get a very cold winter, they probably will not last. But we'll find out.
We're going to find out. Yeah, my dad's going to be watching this. Yeah, he loves snapdragons, so we'll see.
I like snapdragons. I used to have them in my house growing up, and yeah, I enjoy them. So this is a variegated one, and this is a purple trailing pansy. So we will disperse them evenly throughout the bed and see how they do.
All right. How do the root systems look so far?
They look pretty good. In fact, I don't even know if we need to bother tickling them or anything. So far, they're just, I mean, there's none at the bottom, and they're just nicely coming around. I mean, you just might do that. It really doesn't, they're really nicely rooted.
Okay. All right, so what kind of pattern are we going for this on?
Well, I'm just going to randomly put them in, because with the trailing ones, they'll run into each other.
Okay.
Because, you know, they come in these plastic pots. And if you just pull up on these, on the plant itself, it's going to break off.
Right.
So I usually turn it upside down, kind of gently hold it between my fingers and squeeze the container, and it releases and it just comes right off.
It just pops right out.
Since these are all different kinds, I want to set them out first so that we know what type of pansy we put where, and we can get a nice even pattern going. And let's put these purple ones in. These are gorgeous. A perfect size to plant. You see how they're trying to trail as we're setting them out?
Yeah.
So I don't mind that at all, because they're all in this container, so they're all next to each other. They can't flop over and start trailing. They don't have room. Oh, and look, we have a weed. Now, you do know a weed is simply a plant out of place. So these are pansies, so even though this may be another flower seed and plant, it's not in the right place. So we're going to have to remove it, hopefully roots and all.
Get all of the roots now.
And discard it.
Right.
All right, well, that's placing out all that I think we're going to need for this bed, so we can start planting these, and then we'll put the snapdragons in. Well, we will want to pick this up where we've planted it, move the mulch out of the way, get down to the dirt, and dig a hole. And since this particular one isn't too bad with the roots, I really don't need to move the roots any. But when we plant it, you don't want it to plant it and bury the crown of this plant. Because when you bury the crowns of pansies in the dirt, they die. They don't like the crowns buried. So you just get some dirt to go around the edge up to the same soil level, and just move some mulch around it.
All right. Looks good.
And then the crown is not buried. All right, now we will space out these snapdragons in between. They will be taller. The pansies are trailing, so they'll be down, and the snapdragons will grow up. These are very small yet. Be careful. The root system isn't real developed in these containers, so we'll have to be careful. And I noticed some of them have 2 per container. Good for us. We got a few more.
Got a few more. That works.
And there we go. Now those are spaced out, and we need to plant those in between the pansies.
All right.
Again, move the mulch away, dig your hole in the soil, and plant so the top of the soil is at the top of the soil level in the ground, and then move the mulch over the top. Keep away from the crown of the plant. All right, well, we finished planting.
Finished.
And as you notice, some of these pansies have flopped over, but these are trailing pansies. We really want them to do that. It's not that they need water, that's what they're supposed to do. But since we just planted them, I would like to get the air pockets out from around the roots. So we do need to water them in before we leave. We'll water them in and we'll see how they trail.
This is always fun.
It is.
Can't wait to see what it looks like. Cherry trees have a lot of problems. One of those problems would be the fungal disease, shot hole disease. As you can see, it looked like somebody actually shot these holes. Look at the little holes in the leaves. What will happen is the tree will actually make these leaves fall. They will just drop from the trees. Now, here's the deal. When they drop from the trees, here's what you need to do. Practice good sanitation. We want you to get these leaves up because there still may be fungal spores on these leaves. The root systems have enough carbohydrates in them, so this plant should produce leaves next year. Plant superstitions.
Yeah.
Oh,
Kinda
what?
creepy.
Ward off evil spirits and things like that?
Yeah, we're going to talk about all that stuff. So
well,
you want me to start with warding off evil?
Let's start it.
Okie dokie.
All right, let's
well,
do it.
According to legends and
Okay.
superstitions, and I want to make sure that everybody understands that this is not research-based information.
Okay.
This is just purely entertainment purposes
That's right.
only.
Okay.
So y'all don't, take any of this to heart, but it's just fun.
It's fun, right.
It's fun.
It's fun.
And plants through the ages have really played into a lot of our religious ceremonies and rites. So there's a lot of interesting, weird stuff about plants out there. And one of the main things that plants are used for and were used for long, long ago, maybe still used today, I don't know, at this time of year when the spirits are out, is to ward off evil. And of course, garlic is well known, to take care of the vampires and I don't know, all these other demons and things that are roaming the earth. So you hang that out, around your door. And then fennel actually is another one.
I didn't know that.
That long ago people would put it outside their houses and would stick the seeds in the keyholes. That's how the spirits get in, it's through the keyholes. So they would stick the seed in there to keep the bad magic away and the black magic and stuff. And it's kind of interesting though, because now we know fennel has some really good health properties to kind of help maybe boost our immune system. So actually, we need to be eating this stuff instead of sticking it in keyholes to boost our immune system up so we can better ward off the boogers when they come. So, and there's a lot of other plants that were used, to ward off evil, but we'll move on to one that is supposed to help you determine whether your partner is worthy.
Yeah, let's hear about this one.
Yeah,
Let's
your
hear about this.
romantic partner. And this one in particular I think is kind of interesting because it kind of takes the negative instead of the positive.
Okay.
So what you do, and everybody knows what basil is.
Right.
Very common, #1 selling herb, So what you need to do, if you have a prospective romantic person that you're interested in, you need to slip him or her a sprig of basil.
Ah, sprig
And
of
if
basil.
it dies or wilts, that's a really good indication that they are impure.
Which
And-
could be good or bad.
Depending on what you want, right?
And unworthy,
right, unworthy.
So unworthy, yeah, I like that. Unworthy and impure.
That would be
So
bad.
yeah, well maybe you were looking for somebody impure. So that would be a good test, if you're looking for that kind of stuff. Okay, let's talk about
man.
how witches are able to fly.
All
You
right,
ever
yeah, let's do
wonder
that.
that?
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna tell you how to do it. You take some foxglove and then you get some lard, animal fat. You make a big balm out of it, like an ointment, and you rub, the witches would rub that all over them, rub it on their broomstick, and they could fly.
And they can fly.
Yeah, so I don't know whether I'd trust that though. Get up on the roof with my broomstick and jump off when I'm covered with lard and foxglove, which you know is a poison.
Right, it's a
so
poison, right.
I don't
Set
know.
it on fire. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe that would work. So you know when the New World was discovered, you know, it opened up a lot of new plants for the
Okay.
Europeans.
All right.
And they didn't quite know what to make of some of these things. And see, they'd never seen potatoes. So, you know, Irish potatoes.
Okay.
So, and the thing that bothered the Europeans about the Irish potatoes was that they grew underground. So
sneaky.
they were
It's
considered
kinda
to be the devil's food.
The
Devil's food.
How about that?
So they still liked potatoes. So what they had to do to ward off the devil was to plant them on Good Friday and then water them with holy water. And then you could eat them, and
you
then
could eat
you know
'em.
the devil wouldn't get you. So
Then you can eat 'em.
that makes total sense to me.
All right,
you know?
Good Friday. There you
Yeah.
go, Mr. D.
Yep.
Still has too many carbs.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and there's two interesting things I really want to talk about.
Okay.
And one of them is pretty serious, and that was, you know, the Salem witch trials. Back in
Remember hearing about
1691,
those.
long time ago, and people have often wondered what in the world got into those young women, those 8 young women, that made them think that they were possessed by demons and that they had been bewitched. And so now researchers think that they have found a plausible explanation as to, you know, what caused that.
Oh, wow.
And there is there's a fungus that can infect rye. And rye was known to be grown by the early settlers as a, you know, a grain
Okay.
for making bread and whatever. And we know that this fungus is called ergot. And it's still around today. There are no resistant strands of rye. But to keep these spores that go through the whole process and wind up in whatever product, this causes people to have hallucinations, seizures, and to feel like stuff is crawling on their skin. So the conditions for this ergot to contaminate a rye crop is wet weather. And they've gone back through the historical records and found out that that winter was a particularly wet winter
about
in
that?
Salem. And this was, people in Europe were just finding out that this was the association of this contamination of rye caused this, you know, these symptoms.
Wow.
But it never got to the colonies apparently in time.
Wow.
So they think that that's a real plausible explanation for what made these girls have all these weird symptoms.
that?
And they think that was it because it came and went so quickly, and that there was a wet winter, and the symptoms very much mimicked, you know, the symptoms of what can happen when you eat this contaminated grain. So rye growers now prevent that very easily by just washing the grain in salt water. So it kills the fungus. Isn't that
Okay,
crazy?
salt water.
Absolutely crazy. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is, you ever wondered how the legend of vampires got started? Huh? You ever wondered that?
I have.
Okay, good. That was the answer I was looking for.
Yes, yes.
So, the thing about it is, you know, you have all of these symptoms of people who are supposed to be vampires.
Gosh.
And when you go back to Eastern Europe and you think about when this kind of started, Bram Stoker's novel, Dracula,
yeah.
kind of brought it all to a head because he took the symptoms of a known disease that was ravaging Eastern Europe at that time. And it is a disease called pellagra. Pellagra. And it's really, really interesting because another, from the New World, corn. Corn was, of course, discovered with the Native Americans, and the South Americans used corn as a staple. But what they did to prevent the pellagra, which happens if you just have corn as your main diet. Niacin is not available in corn at all. So if you just live on corn, which is a big grain crop, you can develop this disease called pellagra, which is a vitamin deficiency of niacin. Well, the symptoms of pellagra are just really bizarre because it gives you this real pale pallor. You're sensitive to light. It makes you photosensitive. And when you get out in the light, it causes blisters.
Does it make you want to bite people?
It does. It does. You're right. It makes, one of the things is dementia and just
Dementia?
Dementia and aggressiveness.
Being
just being real irritable and ill. And these people would only get around at night, and they'd be real mean, and and they were real pale. And also, one of the other symptoms in dogs is called black tongue. And you can get ulcers in your mouth, and you don't want to eat because of all these ulcers, and they bleed, and then you get this crust of red, blood around your mouth. So, people assume, well, they've been sucking blood. And actually, one of the symptoms is you don't want to eat, but you want to suck things. And you want to eat weird food, like bugs and vermin. And I mean, it's just really a bizarre disease.
This is fun. Halloween stuff, huh?
Yeah.
Where's the Stevie Wonder music when you need it? Very superstitious. All right, thank you, Dr. Kelly. Appreciate that.
Sometimes when you water, you may not have a water breaker for the end of the water, either a hose or a nozzle. Sometimes even the end comes off of your water sprinkler. Well, if you just pour this on the ground, it's going to really make a mess and possibly bury the crown of your plants even more. So you don't want to do that, but you could always use whatever means you have. You can do this with a garden hose or anything, and just carefully and gently break up the water that's coming to the ground with your hands. And stay away from the base of the plant and water around it. That way you won't continue to bury the plants, and they will end up getting watered. And then they'll all be watered.
All right, Joellen, here's our Q&A segment. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Good questions we have here today.
Yes.
All right, so here's our first viewer email. Hello, I have dollar weed growing in my yard. How can it be dealt with? Thanks. This is Lanny from Newport, North Carolina. Well, Lanny, dollar weed is a perennial summer weed.
Yes.
It has the umbrella type leaf, waxy leaf.
Yeah.
Culturally, this is what you have to do. It likes areas that are poorly drained. So you have to correct your drainage.
That's right.
Right? Fertilize according to a soil test, water appropriately. Right?
And also, to put some shade on the surface, you can mow the grass a little bit higher in that area, try to create some shade.
Look at you, you sure can. You can definitely do that. If you want to use a chemical, there are some out there that you can use, right? And this, of course, is going to be in her lawn.
Yeah.
These are going to be broadleaf weed killers, selective herbicide, which will release the grasses, three-way herbicide, 2,4-D, MCPP, dicamba.
Yeah.
Read and follow the label on that. You should be fine. But what I would do is correct the drainage.
Yes,
right?
definitely.
Dense stand of grass in that area to crowd out your dollar weed. Or pennywort is another name for that, because it will come back. It's a perennial weed.
Any
it
little
grows by
tiny
rhizomes.
root that's left will come back.
It will come back, yeah. So there you have it, Lanny. Good luck to you. I hope that helps you out. Here's our next viewer email. Can this rhododendron bush be saved? Last year, the blossoms were all at the bottom, but this year it was in full bloom, best ever. And then this. What can I do? Thanks, this is JV from Morristown, Tennessee. So what did you think about that rhododendron?
Well, rhododendrons are evergreen, and this tree, this shrub does not look like it has a lot of chlorophyll left in it. And without chlorophyll production, they can't get any reserves in the root system for it to continue. I'm very skeptical whether it will even live anymore. It looks like it's on its way out. And what caused it, I'm not 100% sure, but it just looks like something vascular to me.
Yeah, so let's speculate on that a little bit. I thought it may have been stem dieback because anytime you have dying branches, you have dead leaves, dead leaves that are still attached to those limbs, then I'm thinking, yeah, stem dieback. You know, it's a characteristic of stem dieback. So that could be, you know, one issue. And then another issue I know that azaleas have a lot, same family, right, would be root rot.
Yeah, definitely.
Those are the two things I thought about. Yeah, because that, you know, that stem dieback will produce cankers, which would girdle the stem.
Right.
Right. So yeah.
Something is going on vascularly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not getting nutrients, and it's not. Then the leaves are not green anymore to produce chlorophyll. So I kind of think that's not going to survive.
Yeah, sorry to give you that bad news, JV, but yeah, it just doesn't look like they're going to survive because again, those dead limbs are just all over the place, right? And the leaves are just hanging on, you know.
Right.
So, yeah.
And then watch where it is. I mean, if you want to plant something again in that same spot, is it getting enough shade? Is it getting enough sun?
Yeah.
I mean, what is it the right spot? Is it to a low area? Does it need to be raised a little bit when, you know, you replant something else again?
Right.
Just watch those for those things.
So yeah, we're talking about your cultural practices. Yeah, for sure. Make sure it has adequate drainage. And plant high.
Yeah.
Thank you, JV. Hope that helps you out. Sorry about that.
Sorry. Yeah.
All right, Jordan. That's fun. Thank you
It was
much.
good.
Thank you. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. If you want to learn more about the snapdragons or pansies Joellen planted, or see what we have planted in that bed in the past, head on over to familyplotgarden.com. We have over 1,000 videos on that and all sorts of other gardening topics. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.